So this video is the audience and criteria for the Stage 2 paper. So first of all, who is the audience for this paper? It is me, but it is also the peers in your academic group. And for our purposes, that'll mean the people in this class and the people that you most have enjoyed talking ideas over with while you're in the university environment. We will be presenting our papers when we complete our final research paper. So that's a clear indicator that part of your audience is going to be your peer group. That's a very practical edge in this class. It means as you will be faced in any position, any kind of work you take when you leave here, the communication of the most important elements that you can bring to help solve problems, the effective communication of your contribution to problem solving is what you will need to do in order to be recognized and valued for your work. So that's part of why our audience is not just me, but it also means your peer group. First one, where is our definition? What is our definition? On the assignment, here we go. For our purposes, subjectivity means the internal narrative by which a person determines the ultimate significance of their place in the world, as those narratives relate to the concentric circles of their movement: family, habitat, community, nation, and world. So as the person moves in these concentric circles of power from the most intimate out, the narrative by which they give meaning to their movement is where we are zeroing in on subjectivity. I can make this clear. Let me keep going. You may have another definition of subjectivity from psychology, philosophy, anthropology, but what you'll need to do for the purposes of this class, because thinking about religious identity is a very tricky prospect, is to work with this definition of subjectivity, so that you might be able to say, where Keller defined subjectivity for our purposes to mean this, I will, in addition, bring in from my anthropology class this definition. The two work together because, or my definition is better because. What you have to do is acknowledge that we have a common working definition that I believe is useful and effective for you, and that you've got to deal with that. It does not mean you have to agree with it. It means you have to deal with that, either by adopting it or by making an academic move, right? And the move away from this definition will be academic if you have provided a compelling argument for why you're doing it. So move if you want, but acknowledge this one in your paper. Subjectivity means the internal narratives, and so that means that you will be looking for the places in the text, sections of the text, where an internal narrative, a person's story about their life, indicates that they are determining the ultimate significance of their place in the world. This is the apply element. How would you apply that definition to our texts? If you can find that narrative element, a section of writing in which the author is bringing meaning to the story of being a self on the landscape of cultural identity, hopefully this is one of those sections of texts that bothered you, troubled you, or inspired you, but I really like it when the section bothers or troubles you, because it means that there's some kind of an internal frame that's being challenged, and that's an opportunity for some kind of newness to happen in your thinking, right? So I do love those moments when a text bothers you. That section of text could come from a description of a person's place in their family, their habitat, their community, their nation, or their world, right? These narratives, these sections of text in which a person is narrating their meaning will relate that person to the more intimate or broader circles in which they are moving. If we think about Du Bois, right, he begins with the most intimate moment of an encounter with another kid in his class, and she refuses his card. So in that moment, part of what we realize is that his internal narrative of meaning is dependent upon recognition in his community of his full humanity. And when he confronts a moment in which his name, his card, his humanity is rejected by his community, he cannot continue as the same self he was before that. A new meaning has visited him in this rude way, rude, challenging, threatening way that says you are not a self. Right? So that for Du Bois and his model of subjectivity, recognition in the community is clearly central to what it means to be and develop a sense of self. And that it was refusal, the girl's refusal to recognize his humanity, that moves him into the experience of a double consciousness, and now seeing himself through the eyes of a world that looks at him with contempt. So there's an example, right, of finding a section of text in which the author is narrating a sense of ultimate significance. And in this case, the circle in which he is moving is his community circle. If we move to Cone, the circle has become bigger because Cone is now relating the community of Black America to the overarching idea of the divine. And that's where he comes up with his statement, a community that does not analyze its existence theologically vis-a-vis the overarching meta-narrative about what is most powerful and most divine. The community that does not analyze its existence theologically is a community that does not care what it says or does. It is a community with no identity. That is, if the person on the landscape is not a member of a community that is determining its ultimate significance vis-a-vis the divine, most powerful creative forces in the world, he's saying it is a community with no identity. You cannot articulate and develop a sense of self. You cannot narrate a sense of meaning if you cannot narrate your relationship to the most powerful, the creative force of the divine. So his step is speaking at more of a national discourse, right? Whereas Du Bois started with us in that classroom. Du Bois also, however, as we go through those chapters, then, right, once he's mapped out the Freedmen's Bureau and the tragedy that happened after the Civil War for the economic security of African Americans, he can map out not only child in a classroom, he also maps out an economic map, and we move into in those chapters 9 and 10, then two entirely, he just keeps giving us a different map on which to think, how is subjectivity developed? How is it earned here? How is a sense of meaning developed here? You found while you were reading Du Bois and Kohn that you were thinking to yourself, I am developing a sense of black male subjectivity, or when God is black, I see no recognition of gender in here. And you might have thought by the time it got to the womanist stuff, wow, now we're starting to bust into how gender itself impacts that capacity to develop a sense of your ultimate significance. Because God talk has tended to be he talk. Subjectivity talk has even tended to be androcentric, male-centric, giving you a world, painting a landscape that is dominated by male subjectivity. And so there's a chance that your biggest connection in Quest 2 was with integrating a gender analysis. And so you can do that here. If you choose to apply our theory, our definition of subjectivity to either the womanist or the hip-hop section, you're going to still run the same thing, right? You're going to select what you think are the key sections in which the sense of self is being narrated, and you will want to cover the readings. So you're going to want to cover canon. You're going to want to make selections out of the round table. Or in the case of hip-hop, you're going to want to cover Walker and Levine as you do your work. So I need to see the evidence regarding how seriously you have studied this material, and that through your insight, you selected great sections that are constitutive of the most important elements of each of those themes, womanism or hip-hop. Thanks for listening.